Leg down.
Well, the Rockies have officially wrapped up their front office rebuild, and on paper it looks like a good rebuild. But now you got to actually fix the roster. What do the Rockies do to fix the roster? How do you get there? Who do you trade? Who's on the trading block? Who do you sign? All of those questions are what we are trying to answer coming up next on the DNVR Rockies podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the Toyota Lounge. We are live from the Big Boy Studio today. We got the DNVR Rockies podcast coming up here. We're going up on a Tuesday. It's a beautiful day in Denver. All of our teams are good, except for the Rockies, but that's what we're going to talk about today. We're getting there. You know, things are headed in the right direction.
Hope
and it feels
springs eternal.
It does. And we're talking about rebuilds today. And as The Rock says, yes, it is another rebuild for Colorado. And I put this in our little tweet. Hopefully the final rebuild, at least for a long time, that we have to talk about, because you're right. If you feel like you've heard this before, you're not wrong. The Rockies have gone through rebuild after rebuild for, I don't know, a decade, almost the existence of their tenure as an organization. But this time there's something a little bit different. This time it feels, like you said, like there could be a little bit of hope. Now, again, a lot of this is speculatory. We don't know what this team is going to look like in the next 5+ years. And if we're being completely honest, it's going to take a long time, and we know that. But on paper, the Rockies have wrapped up their front office moves, at least from what we know, and they knocked it out of the park. This offseason has been an absolute success in getting baseball-minded people into an organization that historically lacked baseball people. And now that's where I say I think we can finally officially enter into that rebuild.
Yeah, they finally decided to, instead of just putting different used 2x4s on this foundation that's been shaky and adding, maybe a window here or there, or putting in a new sink in the bathroom, or
painting one wall.
Yeah, painting one wall with some cracked paint that's been in the basement for months. They finally decided to level the ground. They leveled the entire acre that they're sitting on. They leveled everything at 20th and Blake. And they said, here's the guys that are going to make the decisions from the top. We are not only going to make them external hires, which every single one of them was. I think looking at reading Thomas Harding's article and look at some of the guys that are in play now, basically you still have Walker Monfort, who, friend of the program, came and talked to us. If you haven't checked that out, go check it out. Obviously the owner's son, but now the executive vice president of the Rockies, and then kind of the director of scouting, Sterling Monfort. But other than that, it's DePodesta, and it's a whole new pitching regime, and it's 2 assistant GMs and a GM. It's a not just a bullpen coach and a pitching coach. It's a bullpen coach, a pitching coach, and a director of pitching. They are adding positions. They are adding like-minded individuals that are going to use analytics and move the Rockies in a direction that Walker admitted to us on the show that they lost sight of. And does it hurt to hear that? Yes. But does it feel good to hear some honesty and some actual quantifiable information of, like, is it acceptable that your kid was up puking all night or pissed on the floor? No, it's not. But the fact that they apologized and they realized that they did something wrong in order to do that means that you can move on from it. And that's where we are right now at the Rockies rebuild. We can move on. We can say, yes, we're angry about how the Rockies have looked. All these moves have signified that the Rockies themselves, whether it's Dick Monfort, Walker Monfort, the brain trust at the top, or the guys that were making the original decisions. Now it seems like a lot of these are through Paul and Warren Schaefer. But the guys that made the original decisions to hire Paul and get the other guys in here in the front office was relinquishing of, we haven't done this right, and we don't have anyone in the building, internal. We heard that word and said that word a million times over the last year. We don't have anyone internal to do it right. We're going to go outside the box. We're going to find new minds. We're going to find new ideas from as many different organizations, Mets, Dodgers, Tigers, Twins. I mean, the list goes, Marlins, the list goes on and on with all of these new hires and where they're from. So they are truly leveling the ground. They're putting a new foundation in. And yes, the windows have not arrived yet. The front door, the beautiful front door has not arrived yet. The nice paint and the siding and the driveway hasn't arrived yet. And those are the players. But right now, the foundation of the house is, we believe, good. Only time will tell. And you can only have a good house if you have a good foundation. So everybody freaking out about, hey, let's sign some players. Why don't we? Well, I will start getting there in about 2 to 3 weeks, or as we lead up to spring training a little bit more. But now that I'm confident that there is a group of, in the pitching side, 5-6 dudes, and then in the other player, regular roster guys, another 5 or 6 guys making decisions on who these players will be, I feel much more confident than them rushing to sign someone. Josh Bell signed yesterday or 2 days ago, I believe, rushing to sign someone that they're not in agreement on.
Yeah, and like you said, at this point, you at least have, on paper, intelligent baseball minds who you can trust will have a process to making these decisions. It feels like for the last decade, specifically, the Rockies organizationally, it feels like some of their decisions have been not well thought out, kind of on a whim. Everyone's sitting there kind of scratching their head saying, why would you do that? Like it felt like we were asking more questions than we were saying, that makes sense, right? And it doesn't mean that the fans have to agree with every single thing the organization does, but there was no faith, there was no trust in this organization to be able to make the right decisions. And they continue to prove over and over that they weren't making the right decisions, which led up to 119 losses last season. Now, I think there's a shift in mindset. Again, on paper, it's temporary. We have to prove this over time, but at least from where we stand today, where, to use your analogy of rebuilding a home, you've brought in very, very intelligent contractors, right? The builders of this team, the builders of this house that you're talking about, have tons of experience building for other companies that have already built successful homes and successful, projects, all of that kind of stuff. And now you've hired them to come work on your home and to come rebuild your home. And so, yeah, it might take some time. You might have to dig yourself out of a hole that you've been in for a while, but you've got smart people to do it. And that's the beauty of where we are right now. So, hey, I'll take it. It's a good start. But now we got to actually talk about the tangible stuff. We got to talk about the roster. And before we get into the specifics, because we will talk specifics here on the show, I want to kind of talk about specific players. We obviously want to talk about, some of the prospects, guys that are in the organization that, whether or not we think they should be a future of this organization. But I want to talk about our identity before we get into the actual specifics of this first. If you look at the people that the Rockies have hired, Ian Levin being the most recent one. He was just hired as the assistant GM, came over from the Mets. After he had left the Mets, he started his own data and analytics company within baseball. He's a very data and analytic minded person. You look at all the hires that the Rockies have made. Paul DePodesta, Tommy Tanous, still haven't gotten a pronunciation guide on that. Ian Levin, a lot of the pitching staff. It's all data and analytics, which is something that the Rockies have been missing forever. They've never been able to lead in the data and analytics category. And now you're bringing in all of these people who have either a draft and development background or a data and analytics background. And I think what that signals to me is the Rockies recognizing the market that they live in, the budget that they have. Paul said it on our show. We're not going to be an organization that goes all in on just one player, signing $500 million to one guy. That's just not the identity. That's not who we are. The Rockies are a draft and development organization. And in the past, that's been kind of a trigger word to me specifically, because the Rockies have sucked at drafting and developing. I mean, look at all of their top draft picks over the last decade or so. They've all crashed out.
Yeah, their first round history from
terrible.
About 2015, 2016 through, and it's still an incomplete pick, but the Condon pick, basically.
Yeah.
Every first rounder from 2015 to the Condon
Brendan
pick
Rodgers
has been.
Yep.
Brendan Rodgers is the best one, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
Like, Brendan
Ryan
Rodgers was
Rollison.
one of the guys that actually made the bigs and signed a second deal or got, dealt to another team. And that is literally all you've gotten out of that. Now, on that same coin, the second round picks, third round picks that they've taken, Hunter Goodman, guys like that have turned out to be big leaguers. So I'll give them a little bit of credit there. But yeah, when you're a team that's draft and develop and you have a pick in the top 10, and the two really high, really quality picks in Ethan Holiday and Charlie Condon coming up are going to be huge to the Rockies roster in 2 to 3 years. But at this point right now in 2025, the first round picks from 21 and 20 and 22 should be making an impact on your roster, and instead they're getting DFA'd or completely outright released from your team.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point I want to make is that, over the last decade or so, this team has been saying we're a draft and development team, yet have finished in, are at the bottom of Major League Baseball rankings in drafting and development. And now you're bringing in these baseball minds that have history as data analytical minded draft and development, baseball people. Well, and so I feel like the Rockies are saying, hey, we're embracing this draft and development identity, but now we actually have on paper the people to do that.
Exactly. And in Thomas Harding's article, I'll refer to it again, he mentioned, and this is something that Paul DePodesta mentioned, and I'm sure is just part of the hiring process as they went through and got 2 new assistant GMs and a GM and a president of baseball operations, is through Paul, all of these guys have a scouting foundation, meaning that they see these players from 17, 16, 18 years old where they're seeing what they could be in 4 to 5 years. And that's not always easy. I'll admit, like in just simple life terms for me, I'm not good at that. Like I want something, if I look at a new bathroom, I want that bathroom in my house tomorrow. I can't envision the process of work that it goes through. But these are guys that have scouted kids essentially and gone through the scouting foundation and built their way up to whether it's Alon Leichman being a pitching coach or, Josh Burns becoming a GM, whatever it ends up being. All these guys have a scouting foundation, and that kind of shows you, yes, there's going to be some player acquisitions. Yes, there will be some free agent signings, whether they're big or small, like Chad Stevens signing to the Rockies yesterday. Not a big deal. But you have the guys in place theoretically to revamp and reboot this entire system. And at some point, we are going to talk. I do want to get to Felix's comment because I was thinking about this in the shower this morning, actually.
Nice. Good shower thoughts.
It was a good shower thought about the Rockies. But he says this is the year of management. Next year should be more about player focus, but hopefully we have answers by then. And that's a point I want to hit on because I do believe having a new regime that is hyper-focused on building this team out and making it better in 3 to 4 years will have a serious focus on, and they've mentioned it multiple times at winter meetings, any interviews they do, on the players we have here. Not saying that the players we have here can be a playoff roster. 43 and 119 will tell you as much. But there are some players here that I believe, and hopefully, and maybe if they're different from management, who cares? But I believe that they believe there's players here that can help a successful baseball team.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm excited to see for next year.
And that's exactly what our next segment is going to be talking about the guys that we have now. Before we even get into who the Rockies should target, the guys that we have now, should they be a part of the future? We'll go into that in the next segment. But it's, there was an interesting thought. This wasn't a shower thought for me, but it was just a thought that I was having maybe while I was driving here. The Rockies have 2 very highly ranked prospects in their organization, Charlie Condon and Ethan Holiday. If the Rockies had done no moves this offseason with their front office, you still had Bill Schmidt as the GM, you still had Darryl Scott as the pitching coach, you still had all the other situations in place for the Rockies. Do you trust the Rockies, or would you have trusted the Rockies organizationally to get the most out of Charlie Condon and Ethan Holiday? My answer would be absolutely not, because they've shown time and time again that they've drafted guys with talent. There have been guys that have come through this system with talent who have even gone on to other organizations and played better than when they played here. And yet the Rockies have fumbled the ball with these specific people. It was my worry with Chase Dolander. I could throw him into that mix as well, of a guy who, he's young and he's got plenty of time, but he hopefully is the future part of this organization. But you got to have the right people in place to actually get the most out of those players. And I think now, for the first time, again, preliminary, but you can have some sort of faith that the new pitching regime for the Rockies, the 4 guys that are in charge of this pitching staff, with their data, analytic-minded, very forward-thinking, progressive-thinking approaches to pitching, that they're going to be able to handle Chase Dolander and get the most out of him, and that they're going to be able to handle, Charlie Condon and Ethan Holiday. I was talking to, I don't remember who I was talking to. It was someone else in the media at the end of the season, and we were talking about Michael Toglia, and we were saying, is there even another team that's going to want to pick up Michael Toglia with how much he's regressed? And this person, again, I don't remember who it was, but they basically said, oh, there's always some other teams out there that are going to say, oh, that guy was just with the Rockies. Like, he sucked with the Rockies. Get him with our guys and we'll fix him. Well, now the Mets guys are the Rockies guys. The Marlins guys are the Rockies guys. Like, we've hired from other teams. And so there's this little bit of faith of like, these are external hires that could actually get the most out of these people. And that's what I'm excited to see. So, let's talk about that. We got to hit our next break, or got to hit our first break of the show. But after the break, let's talk about the guys that we have currently on this roster. Are they a part of the future? We'll go through a list and we'll talk about if they're the real deal, a depth piece, or if they're a dud. That's all coming up next. Well, I want to give a huge shout out right now to our friends over at Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. And I know if you guys have watched this show before, you know that I can't say enough good things about Toyota. I have a 2024 new RAV4 and I absolutely love it. And one of the cool things is I actually had to do some maintenance on it. I had to do an oil change, a routine oil change on it the other day. And I have friends who have different brands, different versions of cars, and a lot of them have to actually take their car into the shop to work on it because they literally, it's like working on this foreign piece of equipment. You don't even know how to check your oil, let alone change it. Well, the cool thing about Toyotas is they're very mechanical vehicles. They work incredibly. They last forever. But if you want to go and change your oil, do something simple like that, replace your windshield wiper fluid, whatever, just do your normal maintenance of your vehicle. Toyotas are great cars for that because they keep them very simple. They're very effective so that you can actually do that kind of work yourself. And look, I understand if that's not your thing. My wife, she doesn't change any of the oil or do anything like that. But Toyota also has incredible customer service so that if you have a Toyota, you can take it into the dealership and they can get you all taken care of. They're an incredible car. I can't say enough good things. So if you're in the market to buy a new Toyota, visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corbin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota Eastern Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. Also got to give some massive love to our friends over at Coors Light because I know it's winter. I know it's a little chilly, or it's starting to get there. At least the mornings have been a little chilly, and I think a lot of people don't really think about drinking a light beer when it's cold, when it's a little bit colder out, because I don't know, Coors Light, it goes hand in hand with summer days at the ballpark, hanging out at Coors Field. But I got to say, from experience, there's never a bad time to enjoy a nice, cold, refreshing Coors Light. Coors Light is the perfect light beer, no matter what time of year it is. Whether it's the middle of February and it's negative 20 degrees and you're just trying to enjoy some nice, refreshing beer, or it's the middle of summer, Coors Light, you can't go wrong with a good, refreshing Coors Light. So embrace that chill mindset and crack open a nice, cold, refreshing Coors Light. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instant Cart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company in Golden, Colorado. Well, Paul DePodesta has said that there are players within this roster that he believes can be foundational, like Spencer just said, that we can build on, that we can see as a part of our future. So I think as you get all these new front office hires, they're probably all sitting down in an office together. They're sitting down, and coming around a table and probably having this conversation, although they're probably having it more in depth, but they're having a conversation where they go through the 40-man roster and beyond, and they say, is this guy, here's what his stats are, here's what his analytics say, is he a part of the future, or should we hold on to him as a depth piece? Should we hold on to him to trade at some point? Should we see where it ends up, or should we find a way to move on from that guy? So I kind of wanted to do an exercise like that for this next segment where I basically have a list of not everyone on the 40-man roster, just because I think that would get a little monotonous, but 21 of the Rockies' top prospects that are kind of in that middle stage of, maybe they've debuted, but we don't really know if they're the real deal yet or not. So that's the conversation I wanted to have. I want to ask the question, are these guys the real deal, a depth piece, or a dud? And I'm going to go through this list here. If you guys have any input on this, drop it in the comments. Drop it in the Toyota chat. Let me know what you think. I'm going to start at the top with a couple pitchers. Number one, Zach Agnos. Is he the real deal, depth piece, or a dud?
real deal depth piece right in between, because I don't think he's your closer of the future, but I think he's a good enough 6th, 7th, 8th inning guy.
Yeah, I think he's a depth piece. I think he's a wait and see kind of guy. You got to see more out of him. Again, if we look at this through the lens of this team being competitive in a postseason one day, years down the road, is he going to be able to be that guy? I think he could be a depth piece, but I don't know if he's the real deal on that. But I think he could be a depth piece. McCade Brown, number 2.
4th or 5th starter, but he's a little too incomplete for me. I just keep going back to what Warren Schaefer and Paul DePodesta said to us at winter meetings of guys have to earn playing at the major league level. I don't think he earned it last year, but his starts warranted more starts, but I don't think he's earned he needs to go into spring training fighting for a spot rather than saying, hey, this guy's for sure our 4th or 5th starter. We haven't brought in any competition to say otherwise. And I think they'll do that. So I think he has to earn his spot. So I'm going to say incomplete potential depth piece as I see him. His ceiling is like a 3.
Okay, I like it. Yep, and I agree with both Scott and Mark. Still up in the air, probably bottom side of the depth piece. Number 3. This one's a little near and dear to my heart. Bradley Blaylock. Are we real deal on him? Depth piece or dud? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think he's done.
I had such high hopes for him.
Yeah, so here's the interesting part about Blaylock and the way the Rockies roster is constructed. I would love Blaylock to be what Antonio Senzatella is going to be, which is the long inning guy, can eat up innings, but you're paying Senzatella like $10 million a year. He's going to stay on the roster, and he's going to be that guy that has to eat the shit when you're down 4-0. You have a bad start from whoever. He comes in, it's 8-0, 9-0 by the 7th inning, but he ate a lot of innings and hopefully can keep you on a pitching schedule for the next game, the rest of the series, the rest of homestand, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, he's probably a dud in my book too. I wish I didn't say that, but that is probably what it's looking like. Number 4, Angel Shiviji. However you say his last name, still up in the air. Shiviji is what I've heard. What do you think?
Depth piece.
I agree, 100%.
I think great middle inning guy.
Yep. Chase Dolander, number 5.
Stud.
Yep, real deal.
And like you mentioned, with the Rockies' development of pitchers in the past, don't feel confident. Look at the ALCS closer, Jeff Hoffman. He looked like complete dog water here, and he was the closer of the ALCS.
Beside one bad pitch.
He was an all-star.
Yeah.
Not great timing for him to allow a home run to a guy that doesn't hit one, but overall, Jeff Hoffman's been unbelievable for the Blue Jays, and I remember watching him pitch here, and I was like, this guy's terrible.
Yeah.
This guy's a dud. So I have hope that Chase Dolander, with the talent and the way Warren Schaefer talks about him, get Alon Leichman's hands on him, get Matt Bushman's hands on him, all those guys. I think he's a stud.
Absolutely. Real deal. He's got to be the real deal. And he's going to be the real deal. 100%. Tanner Gordon. That's a tough one.
Depth piece for sure.
Yeah.
I think Tanner Gordon is he's one level above McCade Brown, where if we go into this year and Tanner Gordon's starting not opening day, but the second day of the year, I'll probably be a little bit sad.
Yeah.
But I do there was a 6-week stretch to 8-week stretch this year when Tanner Gordon was healthy, where I was like, this is the best pitcher we have. This is the only guy. He won, I think when the Rockies, what was it? It was like they won 4 or 5 out of 25 games, and it was every Tanner Gordon start.
Yeah, we were saying, we were like, the Rockies are going to get their 42nd win just whenever Tanner Gordon pitches. Like, he was your one guy that you were like, all right, you can get a dub.
Yeah, like Tanner Gordon, McCade Brown, and maybe a few other guys you're going to say here. I want those guys to be competing to be a back half of the rotation, piece.
Yep. I'm with you on that. I think he's a depth piece as well. I don't know if he's going to have the ceiling to be a real deal, but he's got depth piece potential for sure. Seth Halverson, number 7, real deal, depth piece or dud?
Real deal.
Real deal.
He fully healthy. The Rockies bullpen had a lot of injuries last year outside of basically Jimmy Herget. Nobody pitched a full year. Seth Halverson is your closer.
He is.
Seth Halverson can be and will be, if the Rockies become a winning team, he is a closer on a winning team.
I agree. He's got the intensity. He's got the energy. He's got the physical stuff. He's the real deal. Again, assuming that he continues to develop now with the Rockies pitching staff, he is the real deal in my book. Jimmy Herget, don't even need to talk about it. He's the real deal.
Maybe your opening day starter. Holy shit, you never know.
Is he a starting pitcher? Is he a reliever? What do we even know? Jimmy Herget's the real deal. Jaden Hill. This is an interesting one.
I'd have to look at how many guys are in the bullpen. I'd lean towards dud. It's between depth piece and dud for me.
Okay.
There's too many guys at this point. Like it's just like we talked about with the starting rotation and the Blaylock, McCade Brown, Ryan Feltner, guys like that, where you're like, I think they could be a decent back end piece. I think Jaden Hill could be your non-long inning relief guy that's like in your bullpen, but I don't ever see him being like, oh, Jaden Hill's our setup man.
See,
like,
I actually think Jaden Hill's got a higher ceiling than a lot of people give him credit for. He's got nasty stuff, and he's good, but he just has inconsistencies with his location, his command. I think you get him in the right hands. I don't think he's ever the real deal. I don't think we're ever talking about him like we talk about Seth Halverson or, God, even Jimmy Herget. But I do think Jaden Hill has the pieces to be a depth piece. He just needs to be put in the right hands. So I'm going to give him depth piece on this. Are you saying dud, or do you say depth piece?
I'm saying it's like I said with Shivi. I think it's more. I think he's leaning on dud because I think Shivi is a little bit better.
Okay, that's fair. It's fair. Victor Vodnik,
stud.
Yep.
He's your eighth inning guy.
Yeah,
that is an ideal world this year. The Jimmy Herget thing, I'm gonna put Jimmy Herget to the side because he was so good last year in weird roles of the bullpen. An ideal win this year, if you get 6 good innings from your starter, is going to like Agnos, and there's going to be the lefty that they got from the Red Sox will be mixed in there.
Yep.
But to me, it's Agnos, Vodnik, Halverson. If you're drawing up a perfect day, starter goes 6 innings, allows 2 or 3 runs.
Starter Jimmy Herget.
Yeah, starter Jimmy Herget goes 6 innings, allows 2 or 3 runs. You're ahead 5-2 at Coors Field. Beautiful June day. You go Vodnik, or excuse me,
Agnos,
Vodnik, Halverson.
Yeah, no, I like it. Okay, so Victor Vodnik, real deal. Into now the position players. Braxton Fulford.
Real deal because I think he's a perfect backup catcher.
Like, that's a depth piece. That's kind of what
depth piece.
I think he's a depth piece.
Yes,
like if he's the real deal, he'd be starting over Hunter Goodman.
Yeah, exactly. He's a depth piece. And his numbers too, he was kind of like the offensive Tanner Gordon. Like he'd get an RBI and a hit in every game he played, it felt like. From
he was clutch.
August
he was your clutch
through September,
guy.
like the last year of the season. It was like, oh, Braxton Fulford's in. He's going to go 1 for 4 or 1 for 5, but that one hit is probably going to drive in a run or be pretty consequential. So perfect depth piece. Him and Goodman have worked together for a good amount of time now. I feel great. Like I feel great about Braxton Fulford starting on a Sunday. After Hunter
100%.
Goodman's played 3 or 4 straight days.
Better than Austin Nola.
100%. No Austin Nola, no Scott Stallings, no blah, blah, blah. Fucking any of these guys. Get him out. Like Braxton Fulford's your perfect depth piece catcher.
He is just directly in that depth piece role for me. I think he's perfect for that. And more so than Drew Romo. And Drew, I know, is with the Orioles now, or he got DFA'd by the Orioles. But absolutely, Braxton Fulford's the guy. Hunter Goodman, real deal. No debates on that. This is an interesting one. I've heard so many different takes on this guy. I've heard people say that he's the real deal and that the Rockies are not giving him a fair crack at it. I have a very specific opinion on this guy, but I want your thoughts first. Adael Amador.
Dud. I'm out on him.
Same. I've heard so many people, both within the media and fans, say that Adael Amador is like the future Tovar. And I just don't see that. And maybe it's because I kind of came in later. I didn't get to see Amador in the minors. I came in when he was kind of starting to shift into the majors. I just did not get that from Amador. I think he's a dud in my opinion. You've got talented infield, and infield you can pick up other guys via free agent signing and trades. We saw what happened with Tyro Estrada last year. Amador's not my guy. I'm sorry. Blaine Krim, another guy on the fringe, first base right now. What do you think about the criminal?
I want to so badly because of the few memories he gave us, which we only had a few good memories from last season.
Smooth criminal, man.
I think he's. I want to say dud. My purple glasses on. I say depth piece. My realistic. I want to say dud. But I do think if they don't go out and get if they don't get a legit first baseman to start at the MLB level, first of all, I'm gonna be pissed off about that. Blaine Krim will be your starting first baseman on opening day. But if you guys remember when the Rockies signed back in the good old days when they signed Jason Giambi. Now I'm not comparing Blaine Krim to Jason Giambi. Chill out. Nobody freak out on me. But that's the same kind of ilk that you would play Blaine Krim in. He can play first base. He can. Remember, guys, the Rockies last year started fucking. I shouldn't have said that, but what's his name? Orlando Arcia at first base.
Yeah.
You can't have a first
Dude,
baseman
they had Nola playing first base.
there.
Yeah, they had Kyle Farmer playing first base.
Like Blaine Crim as a backup comes in and can hit some home runs late if you pinch hit him. I don't mind him as a depth piece, but he needs to be a depth piece. Like, don't try to push him into the stud category.
Yeah, no. He's another good depth piece, in my opinion. You get a good, solid first baseman, and you have a guy off the bench who can come in and hit a 500-foot bomb every time he steps up to the plate. Yeah, he might strike out 75% of the time, but he's going to hit a home run the other 25% of the time, and he's only getting a handful of at-bats. That is the perfect depth piece, in my opinion. You don't need your depth piece to be that good of a player. You just need them to be able to do what you need them to do when they're called upon. And he's a guy who can hit a home run at any at-bat, and he can play a serviceable first base. I think Blaine Crim is a perfect depth piece. We got to pause for our second break of the show. After the break, though, I want to continue this list. I'm also seeing a couple comments in the chat of guys that you want to get answers on. We'll get answers to all of that coming up after this. Well, guys, I want to give a huge shout out to our friends right now over at Brunt Workwear, because Brunt is the perfect place to go if you are maybe a little bit late on your Christmas shopping, your holiday shopping, and you got to get the hardworking man in your life some new shoes, some new work boots. Maybe you're looking to get some new apparel. Maybe it's something that you want to treat yourself. Maybe you are the hardworking man in your life, and you want to get yourself something, a gift that's built to last. Well, Brunt Workwear, they have the best-selling work boots that are built to last. Their comfort, their affordability, and they are built for the toughest job sites. Those work boots can handle the rain. They can handle the mud. They can handle standing water. They can even handle the snow. I've mentioned this before. You know, I was wearing those work boots when I actually went hunting earlier in the fall in November. So they could do anything, whether you're shoveling snow, going on a hike, whatever you're doing, they've got you covered. They are the best work boots in the market. And with temps dropping and the holidays coming up, it's time to treat yourself or the hardworking man in your life to real comfort. Skip the throwaway gifts. Get him something built to last. Brunt Workwear. And right now, our listeners get $10 off their entire order if you use code DNVR at checkout. That's bruntworkwear.com and use code DNVR. Order today and let them know you heard it right here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. Well, I also want to give some love to our friends at New Built Construction, because we know winter can be a stressful time when it comes to being a homeowner, right? The temperatures get cold. You've got things that go wrong inside the house. It's never something you hope happens, but the reality is emergencies happen sometimes. Some flooding, your pipes freeze, whatever. And the cool thing about New Built is they're a group of licensed general contractors that can help with any project, big or small. And the really impressive part about New Built that makes them so great compared to a lot of their competitors is they're available 24/7. So it's the middle of the night and you hear a pipe burst in your house, or your water heater goes out, or something goes wrong where you're not getting any heat circulating in your house. Well, you call up New Built no matter what time of day or night it is, and they've got you covered. And it's good to have a company like that on speed dial, because we know, like I said, you never want to plan, or you never hope that these things happen, but you want to be planned and prepared for when these things happen. So when that home emergency hits, New Built Restoration and Construction will be there at nubilt.com or 720-903-4254. Again, that's 720-903-4254. Let them know that the DNVR Rockies show sent you. All right, we left off with Blaine Crim, real deal, depth piece or dud. Moving on to the next one, Kyle Karros, our third baseman. He played a majority of third base after Ryan McMahon got traded. I don't see anyone else who's playing third base, but is he the future? Is he a real deal? Is he just a depth piece, or is he a dud?
Well, I'm going to call him a real deal, but I don't think he's a real deal for the 2026 season, if that makes sense. So to me, Kyle Karros needs to go. They need to sign somebody or have somebody better than him playing third base next year. Go back down to AAA, earn your spot back up here. He's one of the guys that, and I'm saying this semi-carefully, like I'm not sitting here in this chair saying that you shouldn't deserve to play in the MLB. Like, that's not the case. But Kyle Karros was a little bit of, oh shit, we traded Ryan McMahon. He was pretty good in AAA, but he didn't necessarily earn a spot on the big league roster, and I'd like to see that from him. So I do believe if this team is a juggernaut in 27 or 28, 27's a little early, 28 or 29, let's be realistic here. I do believe Kyle Karros could be part of that. He gives me a little bit of Nolan Arenado vibes with his mannerisms and the way he looks and the way he hits.
He gets your stinger going a little bit.
He does. But I don't think he's ready to be at the major league level yet. And I just hope that if they decide to start Karros at third base and he plays all year, it's at least an answer. But I don't think I'd rather him get in AAA and get at bats and play consistently all year than have him be our starting third baseman and struggle out of the gates, and then they're all of a sudden like, we should probably pull the plug on him.
100%. Could not have said that better myself. Ryan Ritter, similar guy. I mean, he got called up, maybe not because he deserved it, although actually out of the two of him and Karros, he had some insane numbers when he was playing in the minor leagues. I mean, we were all calling for Ritter to get called up. His major league numbers weren't all that great. It wasn't bad, but he needed some improvement. What do you think about him?
Ryan Ritter's a great depth piece.
Yeah, he's
if
a great
you can have a
depth
guy that can run, steal some bases, never run once with his helmet staying on his head. But play,
a serial loss of helmet, dude.
Play multiple middle infield positions, could play third base if you needed him to. I think Ryan Ritter's a perfect depth piece. To me, Ryan Ritter and Kyle Karros, there's a little bit of difference, obviously, in stature and the way they play. But if you had to choose one of those right now as a depth piece, Ritter gives you more flexibility. He gives you a little bit more speed. And, he's shown us that when he's healthy, he can hit. So I think those two, much like the pitching we talked about, there's a lot of these guys where it's going to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And I think I would take Ritter right now as a depth piece. But this is me assuming that there's a new starting third baseman, a new starting second baseman. There's a lot of assumptions there, which could not come true.
Yeah, 100%. Jordan Beck.
I knew this one was going to come.
Mm-hmm. Jordan, I'll give mine. I'll let you think about yours for a second. Jordan is an interesting one for me because he's had moments where you're like, my God, this guy is. I mean, you remember when he hit 4 home runs?
Yeah, he got the score update from a national update because
there
he
was
so
who?
on fire.
Jordan Beck. He's had moments, and he's so young. I'm gonna tentatively put Jordan Beck in the real deal category because I do think he's got it in him. He's a very athletic outfielder. He's got the size. He's got the power. He just needs to show consistency because the other part of it is, I mean, he went 2 months without a home run. And we forgot about that. I mean, we forgot about the fact that he even hit home runs for a while. So I think, like Felix says in the chat, you got to stay patient with him. I think he'll end up being the real deal.
Yeah, I do think he'll end up being the real deal. Right now, to me, if somebody came calling about Jordan Beck or actually was mentioned to us by Paul DePodesta at winter meetings, somebody's calling on Brenton Doyle, to me, it's another one, not necessarily a one or the other, but the outfield is so crowded right now. If somebody came calling on Jordan Beck, I wouldn't mind seeing him traded. But if somebody came calling on someone else and moved them out of here, I'm happy with Beck being our starting left fielder day one.
Fair. Yanquiel Fernandez, another outfielder in that mix. I don't want to say that. Look, okay. The Rockies have a lot of outfield depth as it is. They have a lot of outfield options. I might be on the dud side of things for Yanquiel Fernandez. That might be my first hot take. And he might be a guy that works out somewhere else. I just don't know if you have Brenton Doyle, Jordan Beck, Mickey Moniak out there, who we're going to talk about in a second. I just don't love. I haven't seen anything from Yanquiel yet offensively to get me that excited. He's a weird one. He's a really weird one. I'm not sold either way. So let me know what you guys think about Yanquiel because I could go either way, but right now I'm leaning a little bit towards the dud side. Yeah, for the Rockies at least.
Yanquiel Fernandez, if he was a right-handed hitter, I wouldn't even consider him anything but a dud at this point. The fact that he hits from the left side and has shown some power makes it a little intriguing. Big arm too, but
he's huge.
With the Hunter Goodman situation and the fact that you need a guy that can, Hunter Goodman's going to DH when he's not catching. We kind of hurt as much as long as he stays healthy. Yanquiel Fernandez isn't built to play outfield at Coors Field. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
He's not good. He's not going to cover a ton of ground in the outfield. He's got a big arm. He hits from the left side, hits with power. But when you have a guy like Mickey Moniak on your roster, I would much rather have Mickey Moniak taking those reps than Yanquiel Fernandez.
Okay, so then that's a perfect segue into this next guy, who I think is going to be a tough one, at least for me. Zach Veen, real deal, depth piece, or dud?
I'm sorry to say this to the Rockies lovers out there. You got to just trade him. Just get rid of Zach Veen. Hopefully somebody sees something in him.
He's got talent. It's there. It's definitely there.
The thing that'll be really interesting is what happens with him if he continues to be a Rocky and plays in spring training and has the spring training he did last year. Because let's be real, we can only see what we see on the field. You know, you're in the clubhouse at times. I'm been around the team and the leaders enough to kind of get a feel. Obviously, this is a completely new leadership. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a fresh start and a new chance, because the former Rockies brass did not think he was mature enough and did not, like, when you have that ridiculous of a spring training for a team that, you know, you don't envision yourself going 43 and 119, but you have that ridiculous of a spring training, you're that much of a spark, and you can't see time on a team that wins 43 games, something is seriously either wrong with you or wrong with people's perception of you, which maybe he'll change that with the new regime. But as of right now, I'm not putting any stock into, like, he's a fun guy that will have some highlight plays that we'll see from AAA, but I'm not putting any stock in him being a part of the Rockies when they're actually good again.
I agree. I also don't think he has the personality to be a depth piece. Like, if he's not the real deal, and I think it's boom or bust with Zach Veen. If Zach Veen hits his potential, dude could be the next PCA. I mean, he's got the talent, he's got the skills, he's got the raw ability to be an absolute star. But we haven't seen the consistency yet. We haven't seen the adjustments yet. But he has that personality that, like we said, definitely rubbed the old administration the wrong way. I don't think he's got the personality to be a guy that sits on the bench and comes in off the bench, even like a Tyler Freeman type of situation in the outfield. I think he's a starter and he's a stud, or he's a dud. And from my perspective, we haven't seen enough to say he's the real deal yet. So he's going to be a dud for me. The Rockies have other options in the outfield right now. He's not the answer. Mickey Moniak, next guy. He's not really a prospect, but he's still kind of on the edge right now. He was obviously a very good player last year, but is he a part of the future of the Rockies? Is he the real deal when this team in, like you said, 2028, down the road, is maybe competitive again?
I believe so. Okay. I think I would be happy. I'm a big Brenton Doyle fan, so let me start there. I'd be bummed if they traded Brenton Doyle, but to me, Mickey Moniak starting at center field, if Brenton Doyle ends up getting dealt before 2026, or starting in right field going into 2026 with Brenton Doyle being your starter in center field, I'm completely okay with that. Revived his career here. We've seen it multiple times with Rockies signing the Justin Morneaus, the Michael Kadires. There's a lot of guys that they've signed as either washed up older vets that have just revived their career, or in this case, a 1-1 overall pick that just never could stay in the major leagues and be consistent. And he showed you everything you want to see. Is he as good defensively as Brenton Doyle? No, but nobody is. So I would be happy with Mickey Moniak in the right situation, either starting in center field next year or right field, hitting fifth, left-handed power bat. It's going to hit you 25 to 30 home runs if he plays a full season. Stud.
Yeah, I'm not there yet on Mickey. I mean, he's good. He's good, and he had a breakout season. I need to see one more of those from him.
And Luke makes a good point. We don't know what the first base situation is going to look like, but theoretically, if we're talking about the guys on the roster now, if Blaine Crim is your starting first baseman, you've got a right-handed catcher, right-handed first baseman, right-handed second baseman, right-handed shortstop, right-handed third baseman, right-handed left field, right-handed center field. You need a lefty. And that's where Yankiel, like I said, if he was right-handed, I don't think he has a shot. Being left-handed, he may have a shot at making this roster or being a piece of this team. But Mickey, we need some more left-handed at-bats, and Mickey's that guy for me.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair. What about Tyler Freeman? He's the last one on the list.
Tyler Freeman I would be mildly okay with Tyler Freeman being the starting second baseman for the Rockies. I think his versatility, like I talked about, it's a Freeman or Karros. Well, not Freeman or Karros, Ritter or Karros. To me, it's Freeman, Ritter, or Karros, and I would take Freeman over Ritter, even though I took Ritter over Karros. So in the hierarchy of it, to me, it's Freeman most important, then Ritter, then Karros at this exact time for the roster going into next year. I think Tyler Freeman, while he had a major fall off, I think he's a perfect depth piece. A lot of these Rockies are perfect depth pieces for other teams. Yeah. They're going to have to be starters for the Rockies, which is why they won 43 games last year. But I think Tyler Freeman's a perfect guy where, you need to start in right field, he can do it. You need to start at second base, he can do it. You need to start at third base, he can do it. He is so versatile, can steal some bases, hit for average, was leading the major league in average up until June or July. So I think Tyler Freeman's a great depth piece.
100%. I agree with you completely. That's the list that I had. There are other players, plenty of other players on the Rockies, that are going to be there, no matter what. Senzatel is a perfect example. Chris Bryant, another example right now, of guys that are going to be on the roster just because they have to, because of financial obligations. But I think the list that I made, I tried to include guys that were kind of on the fence, where you haven't really made up our minds yet on that. Doyle, we know he's a big leaguer. Tovar, we know he's a big leaguer. Kyle Freeland, I think Felix put it in the chat. Was Kyle Freeland part of that? He's a big league pitcher, right? He's always been the real deal, or at least a depth piece. The Rockies aren't going to move on from Kyle Freeland unless they get something substantially interesting or financial from it. So there are other guys on that 40-man roster, but I figured that list would at least get us started for that. But now I want to change gears. We got to hit our last break of the show. But after the break, I want to change gears. What players could the Rockies add? Because we talked about the guys that they have currently on their roster that they can build on. But what guys could they be interested in adding? I'll give my take on that coming up. All right, back here. Final 15 minutes on the DNVR Rockies podcast. And look, we can speculate all day about who the players, what free agents we love the Rockies to go after. We saw, was it Josh Bell yesterday?
Josh
Bell signed. He was a player that we had tossed his name out there.
And he kind of set the market now.
He did.
Yes, Schwarber and Alonso, who are in a different stratosphere, got $30 and $31 million for Alonso, just a tick above Schwarber, get him signed to Baltimore. But I think that there are a lot of Rockies level first baseman, second baseman, and free agents in general that now that you've seen the Bell deal, I feel like they can slot in actually a little bit higher than that.
Who do you want at first? Because first base has been this conversation. We asked Schaefer and Paul a ton about it in Orlando. What's your take on that? I know mine was, I like Josh Bell. I think that would have been a good fit for the Rockies. But what's your take on who you would like?
The Rockies are going to sign. Mark this as a clippable moment for when he signs somewhere else. Rockies are going to sign Luis Arraez to 2-year, $19 million deal.
That's crazy, dude. I would love that. But to be fair to your hot takes, you did say on our other show, TDSP, that the Broncos, in your opinion, had the best chance out of all of our sports teams here in Colorado at winning a championship. And that was before they beat the Chiefs. And people called you crazy. People were trying to cancel you on the show. And that hot take is looking pretty good right now.
Yeah.
So maybe this is going to be a hot take that looks good.
In that same sentence, I think I said the Nuggets would not lose at home. They would they would break the home record for wins, and they lost the next 4. They just won their first home game since I said that last night.
Yeah. So we won't bring that up. Arraez would be awesome, but Arraez would be a temporary deal. And like Luck says, he would want more money. I think the Rockies could pay him the money that he wants, but it would be a short-term deal, and Arraez is going to want to lock up a longer deal, I think.
Okay, here's the first baseman left in free agency.
Paul Goldschmidt's my guy.
Ranked by WAR. Ryan O'Hearn, Carlos Santana, who's 40, so kind of he's out. Nathaniel Lowe, interesting, left-handed bat. Luis Arraez, Paul Goldschmidt, Rhys Hoskins, Justin Turner's 41, Donovan Solano, Dominic Smith. Ty France, Lamont Wade, Rowdy
Ty France
Tellez.
would be another good guy.
And now you're getting into the Michael Tolia area of WAR, negative. But okay. the guys with positive WAR left at first base are O'Hearn, Santana, Lowe, Arraez, Goldschmidt, Hoskins, Turner, Solano, and Smith.
Okay.
And Josh Bell, who signed the 1-year deal with Minnesota at 5.5, I believe, 33 years old, 0.1 positive WAR. So Josh Bell is... Everybody between Josh Naylor and Josh Bell are the guys I just listed. And I do believe the Rockies, him getting 5.5, okay, so you can get maybe Solano or Smith or Goldschmidt for 7 to 10. I think 2-year deal, anywhere between 7 and 10. It might not be a rise, but I think that's where the Rockies look to get that first base spot solidified. Yeah,
Lowe's a good one. I definitely think O'Hearn would be fun. Goldschmidt's my guy, though. I think Goldschmidt... playing out in Coors Field.
He was a Rockies killer. If we go through, I think maybe we did that or we thought about doing that. There's guys that have just absolutely
ranking Rockies killers.
The Rockies and Goldschmidt is way up there. So,
Mike Yastrzemski. Yeah.
Seeing Paul Goldschmidt do, and I've said this name a lot on the pod just because it's so ingrained, but Paul Goldschmidt doing kind of what like Michael Kadire did, where he's older, comes in, he plays, he's a first baseman versus Kadire was a right fielder, but comes in here. I could see Paul Goldschmidt hitting 330 here at Coors Field pretty easily.
That'd be nuts.
But
man.
another right-handed bat, like the Rockies against lefties will be, they'll be dominant. And then they face a righty and it's like, oh God, we have Mickey Moniak to throw at you. That's it.
Good luck, bud. Yeah, no, it's the first base slot's interesting. I don't think the Rockies are going to go for another position player, at least from a bigger free agent signing. They might go get like a smaller free agent for like a Orlando Arcia type deal for a backup third baseman or that kind of thing. But I do think it's going to be pitching and first base. So switching gears to the pitching side of things. Starting pitching is where the Rockies have said they need to build depth in veteran free agents. Who do you think the Rockies go with from a veteran free agent as a pitcher? There are a lot of starting pitchers available on the free agent market. I'll give you a second to actually think about this because I've got a couple guys. Zach Gallen, top of my list. One of the top guys on my list. Yeah, Zach Attack would be great. Not Trevor Bauer. No, that ship has sailed.
I wanted Trevor Bauer so bad. Real quick, before we get to the pitching, just one interesting note. The Rockies have been interested and rumored to be interested in Willie Castro, who, when I was just looking through the free agent list, the top second baseman free agent.
Okay.
And so kind of like we were talking earlier with the either or proposition, the Rockies may go big, and I'm saying that in quotations for those of you listening to this podcast,
Graded on a Rockies
big
curve.
on a Rockies curve at either second base or first base, but not both. So if they go get a Willie Castro, like the dream of a Goldschmidt or anybody signing at $8 to $10 million a year, out. Pitching wise, let's see who's still available. There's a list of guys that you're like, okay, not Gallen at 3.9 WAR, pretty solid. I wouldn't mind seeing like Patrick Corbin here.
Yeah.
Maybe needs some, same with their hitting issue. McCade Brown righty, Ryan Feltner righty, Tanner Gordon righty. Like you've got righties all throughout this whole. Jimmy Herget, fresh new starter righty. Kyle Freeland's your only lefty in the rotation consistently right now. So a guy like Patrick Corbin, love that.
You know who's also available? John Gray. Think the Rockies go for a little reunion with John Gray?
We saw a reunion with Haesung Kim going back to Atlanta. He got dealt as a rental, comes back to Atlanta. John Gray, now a World Series champion. Maybe he can bring his ring here and let everybody kind of see what that feels like with the Texas Rangers. I wouldn't mind seeing John Gray back here. John Gray was one of the first guys where, baseball is interesting because you can draft players and then they still play in college or they still, you get to watch them kind of grow. I remember watching John Gray pitch in the College World Series for Oklahoma as a Rocky. He had already been drafted. And so it was really cool to see. Like, if you watch college football every year, if you could just get a crystal ball and say, oh, this guy's going to be a Bronco, you can kind of zero in and watch them. And so I was a big John Gray fan, man. He was the Gray Wolf. He was to us what Chase Dolander is / should be now. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he's a bad piece to add to he definitely knows playing at Coors Field. Like, he's been pretty successful at that. So
Yeah. Gray would be an interesting one. Zach Eflin. Also available, another high end.
Michael Lorenzen, from Cincinnati.
Yeah, that would be look. It's hard
bring
to
Tyler Anderson back.
It's hard to speculate because we just have no idea. Tyler Anderson would be a little fun.
Fun story. I went to a game with my buddies against the Cardinals, who Tyler Anderson ended up pitching for. I went to a game with my buddies. We had a few too many drinks outside of the stadium. Didn't get in till 1:10 first pitch. It was a Sunday game. We got in about 1:25, and the Rockies were down 8-0 to the Cardinals with Tyler Anderson on the mound at the top of the first.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
and they didn't have.
And then he goes and becomes an all-star.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
with the Angels. So
and the Rockies
great.
didn't come back and win 17-16. I would imagine in that game. No.
I remember sitting in the rock pile and saying, just a couple runs an inning. That's all we need.
Yeah,
never happened.
Just more like a couple beers an inning. That's what ended up happening. No, I have no idea what direction they're going to go on the pitching side. I would like to have a couple guys set aside on the first base side again. I would love for them to take a shot at Goldschmidt.
Question for you.
But pitching is completely up in the air for me.
Would you be okay with where the current state of the Rockies are? There's two names out there, and I'm probably forgetting. There's probably a few more. There's two 40-year-old plus pitchers out there. Justin Verlander, and I just had Max Scherzer. massive names.
Yeah.
What would you think if the Rockies signed one of those guys?
Dude,
Like, what would
I'm
it
telling
signal
you,
to you?
I am telling you, Justin Verlander finishing his career as a Rocky just feels right, feels fun. That would sell tickets, and no one would be putting any pressure on him. If he sucks, well, he's 43 or however many years old he is. He's pitching at Coors Field, which is impossible even for the young guys to do. Like, no one would hold it against him. I think that would be fun to watch.
Yeah.
He still throws like 100 miles an hour.
I think it would be interesting to, Kyle Freeland is your veteran, still feels young because he's my age and I feel young, but I'm just turned 32, so I'm washed. But Kyle Freeland's like your veteran, gritty guy. It would be interesting if they brought in a former high-level guy like a Verlander or like a Max Scherzer that's pitched in World Series and pitched in the biggest games that anybody can see as like a veteran. Like, you're only going to be here for a year or two. You're not part of this rebuild, but maybe your experience and history in the MLB will help some of these younger pitchers like learn from you.
Yeah.
Because like I said, not that it's crazy different lefty versus righty, but you have all these righties. Imagine, Gordon, McCade Brown, Ryan Feltner all getting to sit there and watch Justin Verlander or Max Scherzer, how they conduct themselves, being part of this team. I think it's an interesting thing. I'm not necessarily calling for it, but if they did go out and sign either Verlander or Scherzer, I'd be like, that's an interesting play that you could see being helped. Like, Chris Bryant was supposed to be helpful to this team, not only on the field, but off the field as your veteran leader and veteran slugger and KB. We've heard it a million times. He was not. But if you can get Verlander or Scherzer on a 1 year, $5 to $10 million deal, I think it's worth taking a shot at. Why not?
Look, man, Pirates, they got Paul Skeens and Livy Dunn. The Rockies could have Justin Verlander and Kate Upton. I wouldn't complain.
Somebody in this town would be very happy.
I would not complain.
Somebody that also talks about the Rockies on the internet would be that would be the number one story.
Yeah,
and not Verlander, it'd be Upton.
Yeah, yep, that'd be exciting. Who's a free agent that I saw wandering around Orlando? I don't know if you actually saw this or if I told you this. There was a guy, former Rocky. I'll see if you can get this. Looking for a job in Orlando. Can you guess who it was?
German Marquez.
German Marquez was, I saw him actually talking to Thomas Harding in the lobby of the hotel because Thomas talks to everyone. And I did a double take because he was in like a nice like outfit. I mean, like he was dressed in street clothes. And I was like, is that German Marquez? And yeah, he was standing there looking for jobs, right? He's free agent.
Him and all
starting
those
pitcher,
20-year-olds in the quarter zips walking around looking for internships will work for money.
Yeah, literally.
Or free.
Yep. And that was his vibe, man. That was cool. I actually was cool to see German. I mean, I hope he lands on his feet. German's a good dude. Just wasn't meant to be, this last couple years.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that like German and Senzatella didn't have flipped contracts. Like I would much rather, not necessarily saying German needs to be a bullpen guy. I think he's still
German was
starter.
Better. German was better,
but German is just so much better than Senzatella, and we're stuck with 49 for a while.
Well, I got to say, no matter what, I mean, the Rockies haven't made any moves from a player standpoint, any big moves from a player standpoint.
Chad Stevens, bro. Chad Powers.
But at least we're not Mets fans. At least we're not Mets fans. I actually saw this tweet on Twitter. It was from our boy Aaron with Blake Street Banner. And he basically asked the question. I thought this was actually fascinating. He said, are the 2025-26 Mets like the 2019-2020 Rockies? And I was like, that's a pretty good comparison.
Where it just starts the downfall.
Yeah, where like you have everything. I mean, you have at least part of a foundation. Yeah, the Mets didn't make the playoffs last year. They missed it by a game. By all senses and purposes, they should have made the playoffs. The Mets were a good team. They just had weird fall apart issues. You're missing a couple pieces that probably would have made you legitimate contenders. You've got the money to do it, and yet they go out and they like act like they're going into a rebuild. They sell everyone and they don't explain why. And it's just weird.
You lose Alonso.
Yep.
You lose your closer to
Edwin
the Dodgers.
Diaz,
you lose
ALLCITY.
Tommy Tanous. Shout out Rockies.
Yeah,
You snag a front office guy. You snag a
Tyler Rogers.
Yeah, they're just, and you got to think Juan Soto's like,
Brandon Nimmo. Well, and Lindor's going to walk too if this keeps happening. So yeah, the Mets, they've got money. They'll probably rebuild in a different way. It's different context than the Rockies. But I actually thought that was a solid comparison because the Rockies, it was the same thing. You make the playoffs in 2018, 2019, and you feel like you have all these pieces that have developed and gotten to your program, and you're like, all right, these guys are legit. We got DJ LeMahieu, Nolan Arenado, like Charlie Blackmon, like Ryan McMahon, like this is Kyle Freeland, Herman Marquez. This is a good team. And then Dick Monfort and company said, like they overthought it. Like you were like, we need to redo this. We got to start from scratch. And it's now looking back, we obviously all know that was the wrong thing. Are the Mets in 5 years going to look back and say, yeah, that was dumb. We shouldn't have done that. That was the beginning of the end, like 2018, 2019, or 2019, 2020 was for the Rockies.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like you said, they could go out tomorrow and go get Luis Arraez and pay him top of the market deal. You can go get a new closer and pay him top of the market money, so they can rebuild way quicker than the ability of the Rockies, like the current capability of the Rockies. But yeah, Mets fans they're already going through it. I mean, Frank the Tank, one of the funniest follows on Twitter, just going through it all year. They had this
just a consistent
Major League's
crash out.
best record in June or whatever. Don't make the playoffs. Like, and I joked, I think it was a podcast towards the end of the year. Maybe our last podcast of the regular season, I said, would you rather be a Rockies fan right now or a Mets fan?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, you're such an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And how do you feel now on December 16th? Because I'd much rather be in the Rockies shoes than the Mets shoes right now. And both teams won exactly 0 playoff games last year.
Oh, 100%. Real quick, just a heads up, we are heading into overtime. So if you're watching on television, head over to thednvr.com. We're going to keep talking for just a minute or two more, or keep watching on YouTube. But so I wanted to just wrap all of this up with a little prediction, because you made your prediction about Luis Arraez signing with the Colorado Rockies. But do you think it's going to be a first baseman? Do you think the Rockies, the first true free agent that the Rockies sign, they will sign someone? I mean, knock on wood, but they're going to sign somebody. They have to, right? I mean, the rebuild starts now.
right? Like, we're like, fucking do they?
Yeah, are we going to do it? No, I mean, they've talked about it. The rebuild has started. They got to fix the on-field product, although it's going to take a long time. What domino drops first?
I think it's first base. I think it's a starting pitcher is the first sign where you're like, oh, like the first sign of the Rockies where it's not a Chad Stevens or anybody
that we don't know.
That we don't know, that we like, oh, this guy should start at whatever position he plays for the Rockies opening day. I think a starting pitcher will be the first one. But I do believe second base right now, they're in the perfect area with Charlie Condon coming up through the minors to sign a guy to a 2-year deal, feel really good about him playing for 2 years, and then moving on, and either trading him, if he has Coors Field Rockies boosted numbers for either this half of the year or a year and a half, and you trade him next deadline. Charlie Condon's ready to come up, but I think first base is that perfect spot where add a left-handed bat, add some power and or really good contact, and Luis Arraez, a guy that kind of changes the game in terms of how it's played. Like, he's an old school contact bat to ball guy, get the ball in play. I think first base is the spot.
I love
position player wise.
I love it. You're not wrong. That's going to do it for us here on the show. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate everything. We will, of course, do any emergency podcast if some news breaks that's, worthwhile. And if not, we'll see you guys. Actually, next week we have a different show schedule.
Next week, Monday at noon.
Monday at noon because of the holidays. So I'm going to be out of town, and we're going to be doing the show remote. So next Monday at noon, hopefully we've got some new stuff to talk about, and we'll catch you guys then. Thanks for watching right here on the DNVR Rockies podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.